Okay, it is 6:12 p.m. on Tuesday, August 13th. This is the meeting of Norwalk's Conservation Commission and Inland Wetland Agency. Alexis, could we have roll call, please?
Yes, Steve Clackey,
Here.
Matt Pence,
Present.
Ed Halwico,
Yeah.
and Catherine Knight.
Here.
That is 4, and you do have a quorum.
Fantastic, thank you. Is there anyone logged in from the public who would like to comment on anything other than what's on our agenda for tonight?
Right, so if you are an attendee watching the meeting, you can certainly use the raise your hand feature on Zoom to indicate that you'd like to speak. As the chair mentioned, you cannot speak on any pending applications, but it's reserved for kind of general comments. I don't see any hands going up.
Okay, great. Thank you. So moving on to receipt and discussion. First on the agenda is S24-644, 189 Perry Avenue.
Yes, I'll give you a quick overview of this one. So this is on the very northern end of Perry Avenue. If you're familiar, Perry Avenue is a north-south street that then makes a sharp left across the Silvermine River and goes east-west for a little while. This is the first property off that east-west strip. This is the second time that an application for this corrective action work has been received. The first application was withdrawn in June after it was determined that the statutory timelines were running out for the applicant to complete his application. The application is now complete. And I'll just give you a quick overview of its location again. So again, here's Perry Avenue. This is the Silvermine River that parallels that part of Perry Avenue. This is that turn that I talked about. And this is the subject property. The reason that the applicant is here tonight is for some activities that were done without a permit, the expansion of the driveway here, a little bit of gravel here, and the installation of some dry wells kind of in this general location. And I will stop my share, and I believe Mr. Carter is here this evening, as well as engineer Wayne Devanzo. So if
Yes.
either of you, hi.
Hi, how are you? Good evening. For the record, Wayne Devanzo, Fairfield County Engineering, on behalf of the applicant. Yes, there was some activity here. As Alexis pointed out, the gravel driveway was expanded. I'd like to share my screen if I could.
Yes.
So you could hopefully see. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so the gravel driveway was expanded in this area, if you can see where my cursor is, and a gravel area was added down lower. So to mitigate the extra runoff from that, we did a stormwater runoff analysis and designed a retention system that we will be installing in this area east of the house, beneath the gravel driveway. It mitigates the 2 through 100-year storms. The 2 existing dry wells will be abandoned, and the majority of the roof will be routed to the new retention system. Erosion controls will be placed along the perimeter, as shown here. Double silt fencing during construction, and at this time, Alexandra Mock has advised me that there is no planning plan at this time. She felt it's a relatively limited lawn area and pesticides aren't used, so that was one reason that she gave for not needing a planning plan at this time. And the areas the plantings might be placed in really would block the view and access to the river. So that is a summary of the project and of the situation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Alexis, could you share the aerial photos of the site for us, just to refresh everybody's memory, and especially for those who may not have been around in June, who saw this, may not have seen this originally?
Absolutely. So as Wayne was saying, actually, 2001. Here's what the property looked like in 2001. So existing, I think it's an asphalt driveway in the front that then transitions to kind of a gravel courtyard. Previous property owner had received a permit from you a few years back to expand the gravel area. There's a stone wall that runs along the property and along the river. And the work involved expanding the gravel driveway. There's a new gazebo, and then there's this new gravel area started. We had received a complaint about digging, and the digging was the installation of two dry wells that were in the location shown on Mr. Devanzo's plan. And at the time of our inspections, those dry wells had just finished, but they were still working. And they had some trenches going from both the roof and footing drains going to those leaders because of the proximity of the work to the river, obviously within 100 feet of the Silver Mine River. Notice violation was issued. So as Mr. Devanzo noted, the property line is here, so there's not much distance between the activity and the river. I don't know if you have any questions.
Do any commissioners have questions about what was and what is, and then we can maybe talk about what will be? So go ahead, Ms. Knight.
Yeah, I just have a question. So the gazebo also went in and I mean, has there been a wetland assessment, or are there wetland demarcation lines, or is this just water course? Are there wetlands as well?
Delineation has not been done, as Mr. Devanzo noted. Alexandra Mock, it sounds like, was retained by the applicant, and she did call to discuss. I think she did a very brief report as part of the application as well. I don't have topography on this, but it's with it. I'm sure that there are riparian wetlands right along the Silver Mine River on adjacent properties. There's no indication that there are wetlands on the subject property because of the walls that are pre-existing here adjacent to the river. The river comes right up, and then there's a wall, and then the parking area. So no indication that any of the property would likely be wetlands. So she ended up not doing that delineation after we spoke.
Okay, and then the roof on the gazebo, what's the drainage situation for runoff from the roof on the gazebo? And
The gazebo,
what's the distance from, is that the property line, or what's the distance from the property line there?
To the river.
Yeah. It looks like, go back to your, I can't measure. It's not much.
I'm measuring it in the CAD drawing. It's approximately 5 feet from the closest corner to the property line.
And maybe this is a good time to refer folks to your drainage report, Mr. Devanzo.
Yeah, that's right. The roof of the gazebo, It bypasses the retention. It is not routed to the retention, so it would go to splash box and just sheet flow. We are collecting the majority of the house roof.
Right. And do we have any information on any potential changes to hydrology from the gravel driveway extension near the house and the addition of a gravel pad back toward the east there?
Yeah, that's all addressed in the report. You know, we did a pre and post development analysis and runoff calculations, and you know, ultimately what we're proposing retention wise would mitigate that and you know, drop the levels below the existing runoff levels.
Well, the proposed is I mean, this is me just asking questions, not antagonizing. Is 5.59 cubic feet per second versus 5.48 cubic feet per second. So
I believe that's for the 50-year storm, I think.
That says 100-year on the screen.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's a 100-year storm, yeah. And if you look across it's the other storms 2 through 50 as well, which are also mitigated.
Yeah,
If you compare the top line to the bottom line, the top line to the fourth line, you'll see they each decrease.
Okay. So the area is bypassing retention plus overflow. We want those numbers smaller than the existing runoff numbers. Is that what we're saying?
Correct, that's right.
Just spell it all out. Catherine, do you mean to have your hand still up or? Okay, thanks. Okay, do others have questions about what's being proposed? Does anybody feel strongly about having adding landscaping anywhere for any reason? Does anybody do we feel that the proposed site plan includes all the information we might need to see?
I don't see the landscaping in the plan.
There is none, essentially. And I think what's going to happen is I think the edge of work will go right along the property line there with this double silt fence, and it really the only work that's happening is excavation of the main part of the driveway, placing of the subterranean infiltration feature, the Coltech. What do you call them?
Actually, these are
tunnels.
concrete galleries, actually.
Galleries, that's the word. I never
Yeah.
remember that word. Galleries.
Right.
And then
Coltech is a
refilling.
brand.
Coltech is a brand, right? The retention galleries or infiltration galleries?
They're called retention galleries. Yeah,
Thank you.
concrete retention galleries, right?
And then to basically just returning it all to how it is now is my understanding. Is that right? Just Mr. Devanzo?
That's right. Yes, the grades won't change at all. It'll be, you know, the hole will be dug for to install the galleries, and then it's replaced. The gravel's placed back, and it's the existing grading that's restored.
Okay. Okay. Well, if wait, I don't see all of you. Does anybody have a hand raised? No. Okay. If there's no more questions, then I think Catherine, your hand's back up intentionally.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. So the gazebo then has a big patch of gravel, and then I'm not quite sure what the logic or what the purpose of the other gravel that was placed is.
The other gravel to the sort of southeast, that what we mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact reason for it either as to why it was placed. We did account for it, you know, in the calculations and in the analysis. I don't know exactly why it was replaced. Perhaps Mr. Carter could illuminate that. I think he is on the call.
Les, you're muted.
Yep, I think you're still. He's not muted, but I don't hear him. He was, or someone using the invitation that he received. He was logged in twice, and I don't see. He was here previously, I don't see him now. I can't answer the question of why, but here are some site photographs. This is the existing accessory structure that's at the rear, and this is that additional gravel area. And then this is standing in the driveway. This is the additional gravel driveway, and then the gazebo structure. This stone wall is the property line, and then off the page property line. This is the existing vegetation. There's a few trees, but mostly just ornamental plantings within that bed. I don't know if I have any others. This is after it had been disturbed with one of the dry wells.
So Catherine, are you feeling like in the area of the Liriope, is that what you call it, or how you'd say it? The
Yeah,
grassy looking
probably.
stuff?
Yep. Very good.
Hi.
Mr. Carter is back.
Okay. Can we hear him though?
He was back.
So just for the sake of keeping things moving, Commissioner Knight, are you indicating that your opinion of the application would be strengthened by the addition of potentially some, I don't know, additional plantings in the area between the property line, stone wall, and the gravel area, or?
Yeah, just for stabilization, you've got, I mean, there's not much filtering that happens when you just have gravel at all, in terms of buffer. This isn't an upland review area, and part of it is about filtering, and protecting from nitrates, phosphate, things that we do on the general activity of a lawn maintenance or around the home. The landscaping is really important, the buffer is. For protection of the wetlands and watercourse. And I'm not sure I'm just trying to understand what the benefit is of the gravel being put in there, the usage. So that would be really helpful to understand and to see some landscaping to deal with the filtering of runoff.
Well, and just to keep things clear, the intent of understanding the purpose of the gravel would be for us to be able to identify alternative means that may have lesser effects on the water course. Is that the intent of that question?
Yeah, the intent is like if it's for storing boats or cars or vehicles, I mean, that would have a negative impact on the water course and wetland.
Because we can't hear from Mr. Carter, and this is just a receipt and discussion, we can't really act on it right now anyway. So maybe Mr. Devanzo and or Mr. Carter, if you could reach out to Ms. Carichetti sometime in the near future before our next meeting so that you have a chance to consider at least some, filtering function, putting in where you can, that would be something we suggest you consider. Am I giving the applicant proper,
I think so.
where it is? Okay.
So
Okay.
I'd encourage either or both of them to email me tomorrow, and I can provide some interpretation of the commissioner comments so far.
Sweet.
And
Okay.
sorry, just on the zoning, I that's outside of our purview, but just to flag, just to check the accessory structure and setbacks for that.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Good point. Okay, all right, well, we're gonna move on then, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, thank you. Okay, moving on to S24-640, 2 Lloyd Road.
The applicant has asked that the discussion on this application be tabled to your next meeting. Your next meeting is scheduled for September 10th.
Fantastic.
All I got.
We'll accept that. Okay.
All right.
Moving on then to S24-643, Bonnie Brook Trail, Norwalk Department of Public Works.
Right, so you received this application 2 meetings ago. They returned the last meeting in July with a little bit of a revision for native seed mix within the disturbed wetland areas adjacent to the both bridges. I emailed you a draft resolution within a staff memo a little while ago. I don't know if there's any questions. Mr. Sotnick from the Public Works Department is here. And I can, if anyone would like, I can show the application materials, just say the word.
Can you
What
give
day did you, sorry,
Like
Give-
minutes
just
ago,
a brief history?
Oh.
on
earlier
the-
today.
Alexis, if you can just give a brief history, because I've missed the last few, and if they've addressed all the concerns.
Absolutely. And then Steve, did you see did you,
what was from this afternoon?
yeah, let me double check.
Yeah.
3:39.
Okay, probably filed it away already.
And then, so from that.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, Bunny Brook Trail. Got it. We're done.
Where is? So, Bonnie Brook Trail is in West Norwalk. Here's Richards Avenue and Scribner, which becomes Geneva, and then here's West Norwalk Road here. Bonnie Brook Road is a road off of Richards Avenue, and then off of Bonnie Brook Road is Bonnie Brook Trail. And this is the watercourse, which is Holy Ghost Father's Brook. It crosses, or Bonnie Brook Trail crosses Holy Ghost Father's Brook twice, here at this location and then here at this location. The Public Works Department reviews the structural integrity of all of its bridges. The engineering report back from these two indicated that some minor work was needed. I will switch to application. So both of the bridges are actually a series of culvert pipes that convey the brook under the roadway. So this is the first roadway. They're mostly doing work to the masonry wall and the abutment walls, and then additionally, this is the second crossing. Let's see. And then repointing. So this is kind of looking upstream. So here's the roadway up here, the abutment and kind of the wall of the bridge, and these are the culvert pipes under it. So they're going to be repairing the face of the bridge structure, and repairing some scour holes within the channel itself, where due to the piped flow, there's often kind of a concentration of energy, and that results in erosion. So they'll be fixing those as well. They have a dewatering plan where they will block water off at the upstream end for 2 of the pipes and have it just go through the other 2. They'll work on the dry pipes, and then they'll reverse it for phase 2. And that's for each of the 2 bridges. It's my very quick summary of kind of the basics. So during work, they're going to be installing like I said, cofferdams. The cofferdams are the temporary dams that block off flow from going into some of the pipes, push it all into one pipe, so then they can work in kind of a dewatered area. So this is stage 1, and then they switch it around so that they're blocking the northern ones, and then all flow would go through the southern ones, and then they'd work on the northern part of the outlet.
Okay. And then, so the terms in the draft resolution, do you feel that they're adequate for addressing the concerns that have been discussed in the past in our meetings?
Yeah, I think so. There has not been, I mean, there was some discussion, mostly regarding the extent of work adjacent to the bridge itself, and whether there'd be a lot of vegetation removal, which there would not be. They did come back and propose an additional landscaping plan that clarifies that a high quality inland wetland native seed mix would be installed where there are some ancillary, let's see, I think I didn't scroll down all the way.
Yeah.
No, that's another one.
That's condition number 2, where you're saying any disturbed wetland areas must be seeded immediately following the completion of the project, right?
Correct.
The moved
So-
wetland seed mix.
Right. So they did give us a kind of an impact map that's color coded that shows all the potential areas. Obviously, the in-stream work, there's some temporary disturbances in the stream for the installation of the cofferdams and for the scour management. And then the little areas adjacent are some of the wetland areas that will be disturbed just by them getting down to the watercourse, and those will be revegetated with a robust seed mix.
Okay. That was helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
On that note, I'd like to propose a motion to approve the memorandum, draft memorandum dated August 12th, 2024 for S24-643 as written. Can I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Knight, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Right.
4, that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Stotnick, as always, for a very complete application, and good luck.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. And as always, it's a pleasure dealing with the commission.
Ditto.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Okay, so next on our agenda is a public hearing, but that can't start till 7 o'clock, so I'm gonna move to amend the agenda to move forward to enforcement actions.
Okay.
24-1065. Can I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Sweet. Any discussion? Yeah, and I have little ones running around. All in favor? Aye. All right, thanks.
Okay. So for the enforcement, so it's a show cause hearing, and I'll just quickly go over how a show cause hearing works. So the first step is that I explain to the commission why I have issued a enforcement order, and then the commission then gives you the floor to kind of dispute anything that I present, or to give them any additional information. And then once that concludes, then the commission at the end of the evening will make the determination whether to uphold the order, to withdraw the order, or to modify and uphold the order. So second, let me share my screen. So I'll start off with on August 5th, 2024, we issued a cease and restore order for the property owners at 36 Range Road. And we cited the removal of vegetation, the deposition of fill, grading, construction of retaining walls and terraces, installation of patios and astroturf within the wetland, alteration of the brook bank, and changing the natural and indigenous character of the wetland. I will note that the activities, it appears that they occurred over a period of time from late 2019 through late 2023. In the order, it notes that specifically that there was a wetland area between the house and the brook. The brook and the watercourse and wetland are in the rear of this property. Approximately 1,350 square feet of that wetland has been cleared of its vegetation and repurposed as astroturf and gravel patio areas. And in that process, nearly all of the previous vegetation was removed. And then immediately west of the wetland, so between the where the wetland had been and the house, another 2,800 square feet of upland review area was filled, regraded, and terraced, with new activities again occurring between 2019 and 2023. So I will start with some photos. So let me do. Switch. So we'll start with an aerial photograph. So Range Road is in the Rowayton or portion of town. This is Witch Lane here at the bottom of the road bottom of the screen. Rowayton Avenue is off to the far left. Rowayton Middle School is at the top of the screen, and Range Road is a north-south road that connects Witch Lane to Crooked Trail. And 36. Top of that, Farm Creek Brook runs through the property. So this is, I'm gonna go back. Farm Creek Brook runs through the rear of all the properties on Range Road, crosses Witch Lane, and continues down to along Indian Spring, and then eventually discharges down at the Rowayton School, where it then continues to be tidal south of McKinley Street. That's kind of its townshed watershed. Again, this is the watercourses. This is a photograph taken in March 2024, an aerial photograph that shows the existing conditions that I and another staff member confirmed in a site visit earlier this month. The property kind of has a gentle slope down to the watercourse from the rear of the house, and I'll switch to some other aerial photos. But these are the newly constructed retaining walls. So they do roughly mimic the same location as some previous retaining walls on the property, but we would argue that the resulting vegetation or lack of vegetation is very different than what was there previously. The wetland line is approximately here. And so all of this area is wetland adjacent to the pond. This green area is astroturf, as is this green area. This is a planted bed, and then this is a gravel patio here. I'm going to just switch to so these are just some more aerial photographs. These are oblique views through time. I'll just go through those. This is the earliest one that we have for the oblique view. This is September of 2019. And you can see that there had been a retaining wall and a lawn area to the immediate rear of the property, but there had also been large tree and some other kind of vegetation, non-lawn vegetation between the back of the house, and here's the pond here. This
Oh,
is,
you're not sharing your screen, just.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Thank you, Catherine. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. So I was talking about this first photo here. This is 2019. This is the retaining wall that I was talking about. This is what appears to be the extent of lawn in the rear yard prior to the work in 2019. This is the area further down to the pond here, in the stream. This was the a large tree and just kind of the bits of vegetation that you can see from the aerial photograph. This is in March 2022, where work had begun, and you can, sorry about the cursor. You can start to see the amount of disturbance that has occurred directly adjacent to the pond, where the wetland had been, kind of a piling of stones. It looks like there may have been potentially some silt fence, but it's hard to tell. The work closer to the house had already been done at this point. This is the top kind of AstroTurf area and the kind of the uppermost terrace. And I do see your hand raised. I'm going to finish and then you're going to get the floor. This is March 2023. Again, this is that upper terrace, and then what appears to be work within the wetland and watercourse. And then this is more or less today, March 2024. And again, here's the pond and the boulders. And then this is AstroTurf, and this is gravel here. And then I'm going to switch to and so these are just more of the same. I believe that I'm sharing the proper thing. This is just looking north. So same thing in 2019. This is what the property looked before work. Here's the stream here. This general area here was wetland rather. Some gardens. This is what appears to be a previously existing retaining wall and a lawn area at the top there. This is that same oblique view in the year 2020. 2021. 2022. And then 2024. And then I'm just gonna lastly share these site photos. So these are site photos when we visited the site a little over a week now. This is looking down from the top patio level off the back of the house, looking at the first level, which is a retaining wall and then a planted bed, and then down to what I had previously described as a gravel patio and then an AstroTurfed patio. The wetland line comes to approximately here where my cursor is, so just below that first planted bed. That first photo was looking slightly to the south. This one is looking slightly to the north. So again, the water course is at in the middle of the screen, and then followed by what's now a kind of a very flat AstroTurf area wood chipped area, a play structure, and then the first terrace, and then I'm up on that top deck. This is kind of just from the top deck, but I think you get the idea of kind of the flatness of the wetland. And so here's again pond on the left, previous wetland area that's now astroturf, elevated planted bed, and then another retaining wall with the patio that's directly accessible from the house. This is just a close-up of the pond, the rocks, vegetation, and then astroturf. And I think that's pretty much concludes what I have as far as sharing photographs. And then I'll just finish with the order. The order says to stop all work and then to submit a corrective action application on or before Tuesday, September 24th, 2024, and to complete whatever directives are in that order. And then I just wanted to show one more. Sorry, I forgot. The wetlands were flagged previously. Let's see if I can get this to. So this is a topographic GIS generated map with photogrammetric topography. The topography is from 2016, so it was before any work was done. And then this is the extent of wetlands, and that is that was provided from a survey. So that location of the wetlands is fairly accurate. And then this is, again, that same 2016 photography. The wetland line is this light green line. And as an underlay, I now have added the 2024 aerial photo. And so the wetland line encompasses that gravel patio area and the flat astroturf area right up to the pond. And so the Andersons, who are the property owners, are here tonight. And if you want me to share any of the photos that I just showed, just let me know and I can share those.
Yeah, thank you. I really want to add a lot of context and information that really explains a lot of this. There were some important pieces that I think might have been misrepresented, and through no fault, Alexis, of your own. First off, as Alexis called out, I would divide this into two areas. There's the upper area outside of the wetland, which was the retaining walls, planter beds, and upper patio area. And then the area that she highlighted within the wetlands. Now, I'd love to talk about each of those individually. So and by the way, am I allowed to screen share with some photos?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'll start with the upper area, which, as you highlighted, was 2 retaining walls, a lower retaining wall, and an upper retaining wall, meaning in the lower area was a dry stack retaining wall. And I'll screen share a photo from when we effectively bought the house or shortly thereafter, showing what was existing. Pardon me.
Which
for
was
this.
when?
Thank you. Yes, we bought the house in 2015. And when we bought it, it looked quite different than it did back there. So first off, there were existing retaining walls or dry stacked retaining walls in the locations more or less where we built the current retaining walls. So what we had there at the time, and allow me to screen share, and apologies, like historic photos are I can't go and take more, so I had to rely on the best I could find. But this is a photo from standing near the pond, the man-made pond down there, and looking up towards the house. So you could see there's clearly a significant elevation change, and the previous owners or whomever back in the day had a existing lower rock wall and then a planter bed filled with azaleas and other domestic plants, and then a upper retaining wall, which was sort of a poorly mortared retaining wall. And then further up, you had this patio area up top that you could see as sort of brick on top, and then more rocks there. And from the top, let me see if I will pull up the correct photo. From the top, it looked like this, and forgive, I don't know if, can you see this additional photo I just pulled up? No? Okay.
Not yet.
Sorry. You share. I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully you'll bear with me on any background things popping up. So this is what the upper area looked like when we purchased the house. I know, Alexis, in the photo you had, it showed grass that we tried to plant and failed. Originally, this was a patio. This is these are paver stones that sat on top of a mixture of rock with dirt. I know because I dug up a significant amount of it to try to plant grass there. And then on the far side, you'll see our existing screen porch, and you can't really tell, but this is where the other patio was over there.
Actually, Mr. Anderson, I'm sorry.
Yes,
It's 7 o'clock, and we've got a bunch of people lined up to do a public hearing.
Apologies.
So, no, it's not your fault at all. It's I thought maybe we could get through this in the amount of time that we had, but I was a bit optimistic. So if you don't mind, put a pin in where you're at right now, and we'll come to it after the public hearing. And sorry. So we've made progress on your on property, but we're gonna have to put a hold on it just for a few minutes so we get this public hearing done, and then we'll come right back to this. Okay.
Or is it
Is that in this meeting still? Just
This meeting.
we get
Yeah,
to
don't go anywhere.
Yeah, you don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
We just have a,
I mean, or
Okay.
would we get moved
Well,
to
no.
the other September
Well,
date?
yeah. Well,
no, we'll return to you.
yeah. Well, I'd love to finish what I started. So yeah, we'll stand by.
Great. And if you've got, little ones or whatever, one of you is perfectly fine, or, trade off, whatever. It's
Oh,
just like
we
get a
got little
full-
ones. We can.
Yes,
The kids are running in the back.
Toys went out for us. Yes. That's
Okay,
right.
sounds good. All right.
All right,
so,
thank you. We'll wait.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. All right, so let's see. Do I have to go back to the public hearing, or can we just have the public hearing, Alexis?
No, you can just make you can just announce that you're opening the public hearing. And then we'll go through all of that stuff.
Okay, so let's go ahead and open the public hearing for S24-641 for Singing Woods Road.
Okay. So I'll just kind of give an overview of how public hearings work. So I'll start by saying that the public hearing was noticed in the newspaper twice, actually more than twice, but for this date, it was published in the Hour on August 1st and August 8th. And then additionally, I have received from the applicant notice of mailing to all adjacent property owners. So the Inland Wetland Agency reviews a lot of different applications for doing work in and adjacent to wetlands and watercourses. If it's for certain applications, they make their decision based on the application provided by the applicant, verbal testimony from the applicant, and any interpretive assistance from their staff. When they have a public hearing, they're inviting the public to also speak to them to provide any additional information that may assist them in making an informed decision on an application. So the way a public hearing works is the applicant will first do a presentation and provide the commission and also the public a review of what's being proposed and its all of the activities and their potential impacts to wetlands and watercourses. Once that's completed, the commission will open up to public comment. You should know that it's not a back and forth conversation. It's the commission will take comments in the order that you raise your hand when we get to that point. It's kind of a one and done. So when you are called to speak, please speak your whatever you want to say, because it's most likely that the commission will not return to you for additional comments. Once the public hearing comment period is over, it goes back to the applicant, and the applicant is allowed to do closing comments and a rebuttal. And then if everything is concluded, the commission then closes the public hearing, and then they'll digest all this information, and at a future meeting will make their decision on the application. So that's, I think I covered everything. So with that, I think the applicant and the applicant's representatives are
Here it is.
here. So we'll give the floor to you.
Good evening. Could I, this is Drew DeLatch from William Kenny Associates. Could I just start by requesting that Len DeAndrea be added as a panelist rather than an attendee?
So sorry, Lynn. Oops. Here. Was there anyone else that from DeAndrea? No, looks like that's it. Okay. You're muted, but once you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak. So Lynn or Drew, you have the floor. So if you want to do your presentation of the application, and then
well, if I may, why don't I just start with what we did as far as these plan revisions, because I know, you know, the focus of this public hearing is really the violation. At the same time, we have a site plan that we have neighbor comments on, and I can run through our changes real quick if that's helpful for everyone. And not great at this, but I can share my screen, I assume.
yes, you should be able to. And if you have any issues, I can share for you.
Okay. Let's see. All right. By any chance, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. I'll start over where my hand is over here. This is one of the areas where we had a level spreader and this infiltration system configured slightly differently and farther to the north where it was encroaching into the upland review area. So one of the things we did in response to your comments and early concerns was to shift everything. instead of having 3 rows for the infiltration system, we have 2 rows. It's slightly longer, great for distribution. The level spreader is pulled back with it, and the house was slid farther south as well so that we could accomplish all that. We are lucky in that the applicant also owns adjacent lot number 15. So instead of trying to ask permission to encroach into the wetlands, coming through this paper right of way, which is the frontage for this property, he was willing to peel off of where this little former cul-de-sac is and remains before it was extended, and then come in and provide an easement for both utilities and the driveway onto lot 15, crossing over into the subject parcel. And that was great. So one of the things too we did to minimize the encumbrance on this adjacent property, we did have it closer to the right of way. So we think we created a nice fair compromise, and we moved that further south as well, about I think 10 feet as a minimum. So now we're 25 feet, I believe, at the closest location to the wetlands. The driveway itself will be curved, and we do have 2 catch basins, one in this location here and one down in this location here, that will feed into the infiltration systems before they are discharged either to the street system on the west side or into the level spread on this side here. There is, and I'll get into these response comments in a second, but just to point it out, there is a small, low profile, 1.5 to 3 feet high retaining wall on the north side of this driveway. And the only purpose of that retaining wall is so that we can confine the site grading. So instead of eliminating the wall and pushing site grading out to blend into these existing contours, we kept our disturbance as tight as possible. I believe if it's appropriate, there was a letter submitted to the Norwalk Inland Wetland Agency by Stephen Danzer, listing some comments. There were 3 about the proposed driveway, so I'll touch on those. And one of them was rock removal. There's a bit of a rock, perhaps right in this location here. He's concerned that that might cause some undue disturbance. I would say that there's a minimal amount of disturbance in this area to begin with. Our cuts are, in some cases, a foot, maybe 3 feet at most on the back side over here. And then actually on this side, it ends up being a fill. So there's really no rock anticipated for removal where the wall is going. The runoff, as I said earlier, was being collected and infiltrated, and that's a good situation too, because we do hydrate the soils, and therefore it's curved in this side along here. If the rock is encountered, he was concerned that would we be blasting it or chipping it? Well, for this small little area here, and really the way things operate these days, is you tend to chip, certainly well before you even consider blasting, because there's quite a bit that's involved with that. So I would point out that we also did show a footing drain that would be running down this driveway. And that's a good point he made. I'm sure the applicant is not going to want to chip away rock to install this gravity footing drain. And so if the rock is encountered to where Mr. Danzer or Dr. Danzer thinks, then we're simply going to take the footing drain into a sump pump, and then we'll pump it up to where we can gravity feed instead of having to excavate lower. So I think this is a very good compromise. Again, we're lucky we have the applicant owning the adjacent parcel. We're so happy we're not here trying to say we need to bring a driveway into and encroaching upon the wetlands. And I think this is a fair compromise. There are invasives in this area of the right of way, so I don't want to steal the thunder of Bill Kenny and his staff. But I think most of the other comments dealt with landscaping and this violation itself. So unless you have any direct questions for us, I'll turn it back over to Drew from Bill Kenny's office.
Okay, well, there's no questions for Len. Yeah, as he was just discussing with the driveway with question 3, the details for planting and restoration plans. Like you said, we'd be happy to, offer to remove invasives. And as is detailed on the DeAndrea plans, area that is to be disturbed will eventually be reseeded and stabilized regardless. But if we would like to do some more efforts, we're happy to do invasive controls as necessary. And then with more related to us, the B section of everything, we starts off discussing specifications of the plantings that are to be installed. While we do have the plant list as well as the locations, the concern was that the actual trees were not identified specifically with each placement. While that is true, ultimately all those species will be installed. There is, in a natural setting, it's a little bit more haphazard where things do occur, but if there are specific call outs, need to be seen for each planting, I'll discuss with Bill, and I'm sure you'd be happy to make that. So as to why there are no shrubs, for the second question, as it's described that the rest of the area does have a shrub layer within the wetlands. Honestly, I would have to refer back to Bill for that one, but ultimately, we do feel there's an abundance and diversity of native species that are going to be installed through the proposed native upland trees as well as the wetland trees. And in addition to that, there are multiple seed mixes specified to also provide an abundance of native species throughout the property.
Drew,
Sorry?
I'm sorry, could you share the landscaping plan, or I
Certainly.
can, just so the commissioners can see the
I'd be happy to share it.
landscaping plan as you talked about it.
Let's see. Is that working?
Maybe just enlarge it a little bit. It's pretty
Yep.
small on the screen.
Gotta bear with Adobe. It takes a minute sometimes.
Yep.
Assuming all the color will be restored to the document. Well, okay. Does this work?
Oh,
It's the only way it's
Little small.
preserving the colors
Yeah.
there. We can get that a little
I
bit
will,
closer, but
okay.
yeah, so with that, the call outs for the trees, all the uniform circles, those are the proposed plantings. So they weren't necessarily called out in terms of which individual species is in each location, but regardless of that fact, there's all the species indicated and the quantities are to be installed. To move on to the next question, there are tall stumps of trees to be maintained in place. If for the trees to be removed, sure that would be acceptable depending on the disturbance related to, most trees aside from ones that are unavoidable are related to correcting the violation. So to fully remove the violation fill, it will likely need to be, properly removed. So dependent on that, some trees may be able to remain as stands, but ultimately, it's dependent on the correction activities. And then for the demarcation feature, I believe it is boulders. It was specified on the, let's see, bottom of the document. I don't know if you can see me highlighting that.
Yep.
We do begin with saying boulders or other demarcation features. I believe the comment was specifically related to what type and size. It will likely be boulders, I would assume. I couldn't say for certain, but boulders are pretty typical and they're a good demarcation feature that looks fairly natural. So I assume it would be in that regard. They would use those. And then for proper safeguards for maintaining installed plantings, it's not specified as organic on the second page here. This is the one I believe was called out. But we do recommend, maybe not on the document in this case, but we are always in support of using organic treatments for these sort of things. So organic deer spray, if that would be like, if we would like to see that be used, then that would be just fine. And I believe that was all of the comments that were raised.
Okay, would anyone else from the applicant's side like to present additional information? I think first we'll ask commissioners to provide comments and ask questions, and then we'll open up to the public. So I'll go ahead and say I don't see any hands up, so I'll go ahead and say Alexis, with regard to the Dr. Danzer's letter that Mr. Daylock had summarized for us, at least as far as the wetland restoration plans, section B. Could all 5 of those comments be addressed via conditions in a memorandum, theoretically?
Yes, just reviewing all 5, but I mean, other than certainly the wetland restoration stuff could right, either way, the applicant could suggest changes, or we could certainly, if you were to in the future make an approval with conditions, you could condition the requirement of I don't know, for example, the spelling out the demarcation and the limit of lawn versus wetland buffer. You can certainly modify it to add shrubs if you thought that was important or necessary.
Okay, great, thank you. And then on the first page of that letter, there's in the proposed driveway section A. Let's just skip number 1 for now. I think number 2 also could be addressed by condition in the resolution, saying that any rock that will be removed will be chipped, probably. Going back to number 1, Mr. D'Andrea, could you talk a little bit directly to number 1 on the Dr. Danzer's letter as far as moving the driveway to the south, thereby reducing disturbance in close proximity to the wetlands? Well, the feasibility of that or what it may look like if that was something that we wanted to act on.
Yeah, sure. We are always trying to do a little compromise here. And if I were to pull this driveway further to the south, well, one, it does encumber the adjacent property a little bit more. That's not necessarily your concern. It is certainly the applicant's concern, but it's also just pushing it up the gradient more. So now we're actually going to probably get into more site disturbance than necessary. Again, if you look at this closely, you'll
and
find
actually,
that.
could you share your screen? Could you guys share your
Yeah,
screen?
sure.
Sorry,
Just give me 1 second here.
Yep, there you go. Thank
Okay.
you.
So again, if you look at the contouring closely, you'll see that we're running this driveway as close to grade as possible. And that one area where we're showing that low profile wall, and if you look closely at that again too, that's where the grade is dropping off. So if you see, if we're starting to pull this farther to the south, we're just going to get into more earth that's unnecessary. And it also really starts to compromise our septic location. So you think that we have a nice big piece of property, but I think you realize that it's encumbered by a lot of wetlands as well. So we have down in this location our septic location, and that is the best septic location. We don't have a lot of room to keep pushing or sliding that around as well. So I think this is a nice balance of minimizing tree removal. In fact, there's some nice trees in the head of the right-of-way that won't be touched now. It does come into the adjacent property such that now we have a full 25-foot buffer. We have it curbed. We have infiltration system. So I don't see the benefit of trying to push this driveway any farther and really just having like an S-turn to go a little bit deeper in and come back around and go around our septic system. I think
Well,
this works out.
the benefit of keeping disturbance away from the wetlands is to, minimize any potential impact on the wetlands. So as far as we're concerned, any additional foot that you can get away from the wetland is a good idea. But obviously, we understand there are other things at play. But are there any wetlands to the south on either property lot 15 or the proposed?
No. I think our biggest concern in sliding this is our septic system. There's very little area for us to adjust that.
Well, but it doesn't have to look just like it is. I mean, septic systems can come in a variety of shapes and achieve the same
No.
infiltration, right? Or no?
No, not necessarily. We have to address minimum system leaching spread. We have the soils that we have to contend with.
Yeah.
We really found that, and a lot of times we go into it this way. In fact, on some of these lots, I'm not sure if it was this one, we went back out there and did more testing with the health department to make sure we have selected the best system. So this system has that length is required. We can't stack it. We really need that location.
You
Again,
can't turn it into an L. You can't
No.
put one in front of the other. No.
No, you have to have a certain separation. We just simply don't have the room. We're really into this one little confined location in
Yeah.
the southwest corner of the property beyond your upland review area. Again, the driveway itself is not very wide. We didn't make it a very wide driveway. We do curb it. And I just don't see the benefit of encumbering the adjacent parcel because again, we also look at the long-term impacts, and I just don't see any long-term impacts with our infiltration systems, which help to hydrate the soils, our curbing, our catch basins. So I think it's a nice balance and nice compromise. And I'd say one last thing, just envision yourself, and I know we want to protect the wetlands to the greatest extent feasible. The wetlands that we're concerned about for this driveway is in the right-of-way, the paper right-of-way. If we were to try to serpentine this a little bit more, it's just a very awkward way of driving it, and you'll end up going down and up and around and back down. And it's not going to benefit these wetlands, in my opinion. And I'll certainly defer this off to Bill, Candy, and Drew for their comment as well. But I really think we've got a nice balance for saving trees and minimally disturbing the environment.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners? I don't see any hands up. You'll have a chance to chime in a little bit later. Alexis, do we want to open up to public comment?
Yes. And so if you'd like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature and we'll allow you to, allow you to speak. And so first to have hands raised is Mr. Danzer. And Steve, you should have the ability to now speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I actually would like to defer to Lee, the attorney, if he is here.
Okay, I'm gonna mute you and then I'll go,
Okay.
we'll come back to you. Hold on. Excuse me. Okay. Attorney Lefkowitz. Yep.
Great. Thank you, Alexis. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Lee Lefkowitz. I'm a partner at the law firm Zarin and Steinmetz. Steve and I were retained by a large group of neighbors. We sent a letter this morning identifying who those individuals were. We also sent a letter a couple of weeks ago about that. And really our purpose of our retention is that this group of neighbors was just concerned about the application, wanted to have their voices heard, and moreover wanted to have a group of sort of third-party independent professionals take a look at this application, make some recommendations, make sure all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, make sure all applicable laws and regulations were being followed. And as was indicated previously, ensure that the wetlands are impacted to the minimal extent possible. So that was what I was brought in for, that was what Steve was brought in for. Alexis, I appreciate you going to Steve first. I'll keep my comments somewhat brief. You saw our letter and submission, and then I'll turn it over to Steve to sort of talk a little bit about the science. So the first thing I noticed taking a look at this is obviously we're here at a public hearing for the purpose that this is a significant regulated activity. Section 60A7 of the Norwalk Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulation require that as a part of the application, where there's a significant regulated activity heading to a public hearing, the applicant must include alternatives considered and reasoning why the proposal set forth in the application was chosen as opposed to any other alternatives. So the first thing I noticed taking a look at this is that I didn't see any alternatives proposed here. Not to say that this wouldn't have been the best of possible options here for the applicant. Maybe it is, but part of what we're here for is, especially Steve will come in and explain, perhaps taking a look at some alternatives would have illuminated some of the recommendations that Steve and I are about to make today as to ways that this particular option could impact the wetlands a little bit less than what's being proposed. And we would have expected those alternatives to be depicted on alternative site plans and drawings, which we haven't seen. So that was one concern that we had, and Section 60A-10C of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Regulation states that the agency shall not issue a permit unless the agency finds that a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. So none's been proposed here, so it'd be hard for this board to do that without any options being presented by the applicant. And that burden under the law is on the applicant to establish with the record evidence. So my clients are here, we're here just because we're concerned that if there weren't any alternatives here, and especially based on once we took a look at the science, seeing that maybe there were some ways that the law could have been followed a little more closely, but moreover that the application could have been improved to ensure that the wetlands wouldn't be impacted quite as much as they are here. So that takes me to Steve's memo, some of his suggested alternatives that might have enabled this application to go forward with less of an impact on the wetlands. One, you all talked about a little bit, was the driveway and the retaining wall. No secret, you all sort of homed in on exactly what we want to talk about here. We went out to the site, Steve and I did, we took a look at it. The large rock outcropping, which the applicant, with all due respect, a few moments ago sort of glossed over a little bit as though it's just a little bit of rock. It's quite a large rock outcropping. When we saw it there, we sort of thought, wow, this looks like it's right in the middle of that driveway. And it would be quite a disturbance, whether it's going to be chipping or blasting, however that's going to be removed. That's going to be significant. So the first thing that Steve set out to do is there's some way that we can shift the driveway a little bit and the wall, avoid that rock outcropping, and also move the disturbance a little bit further away from the wetland, which is of course better. So that's probably the first and primary item that we'd like to see done here. I'll let Steve talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. But I was encouraged to hear, it sounded like the applicant took quite a few of Steve's other recommendations seriously, and maybe those will be incorporated into a resolution or a revised submission from the applicant, we would hope would be even better. And the second thing, and I'll let Steve talk also about that, but just the restoration plans, screening and plantings. We want to make sure that the site is put back in as good or better condition than it is now. We noted that the plans indicated that the proposal involved removing approximately 16 trees. I've been out to the site. It appeared to me that there were quite a few more than 16 trees that were going to have to be removed here. So I wanted to understand how the applicant came to that figure. I presume that there is some minimal tree diameter that they use to calculate whether it's a tree or not that they're removing. But point is, there's a lot of screening, a lot of vegetation that's going to be removed as a part of this application, whether the applicant calls it a tree or not. So we want to make sure that what's planted back in there is effectively creates the same screening effect that's currently there now. That the same level of vegetation is there now. We want to make sure that the quality of shrubs is as good as it is now. We want to understand what kind of a warranty is the applicant going to provide on those shrubs to make sure that they're still alive a year from now or 2 years from now. some replanting if any shrubs should die. We want to make sure of that. And in sum, and I'll close here and I'll turn it over to Steve to explain the science a little bit more. Our goal here is essentially to ensure that the wildlife, the vegetation, the geology, the wetland itself, including drainage, is preserved as best as possible. We want to ensure that all applicable laws are followed. And it appears that certain key considerations that I highlighted here that Steve's about to highlight were missed. We're encouraged to hear that at least some of them now are going to be included. We hope all of them will be included. And we'd especially like to see that the proposal be fashioned in such a way that is the least environmentally impactful. And with that being said, let me turn it over to Steve, who can explain in a little more detail his memo, as well as what he saw as a professional soil scientist, wetland specialist, and arborist when he went out to the site with me. So I'll turn it over to Steve Danzer, PhD.
Steve, you're muted. No, you're not.
How about that? All right, thank you. Hello there. Good evening. My name is Steve Danzer. I'm a soil scientist, professional wetland scientist, and arborist. My office is located in Stamford, Connecticut. As you all know, I wrote a letter, a memo to be submitted in order to recommend improvements and just kind of comment generally about this proposed application. I guess the best thing is just to jump in and just kind of add my 2 cents after listening to the comments by the professional engineer, Mr. D'Andrea, and Mr. Delach. Regarding the ledge outcrop, I just listened to Mr. D'Andrea, and I understand his concern about being boxed in with the septic system, but the one thing he didn't get into, and perhaps he could elaborate or even better offer some assurances in writing or on a plan, is I'm not convinced that you can't move that driveway 10-15 feet and keep the septic in place without altering the configuration of the septic. Doesn't seem like I mean, there's a couple of feet, there's more than a couple of feet in between the septic and the driveway, and you can, with some artful grading, I mean, I see septic systems directly next to driveways all the time. So I still think there's some room for maneuvering in there until proven otherwise. So I'd be eager to have the commissioners either ask more detailed questions or give Mr. D'Andrea more opportunity to answer that question in a little bit more depth. I understand this might be new to him. I don't know when he saw my memo, but that's kind of at the core of my questioning about this application, because one, design principle about low impact development and wetland design, wetland impact, one thing that we all should strive for is to minimize impact to wetlands, and the simple way to do that is to increase the distance between the proposed activity and the wetland. And in this case, the proposed activity is pretty intrusive. It involves removal of rock. It's not just digging holes in normal dirt. It's a pretty intrusive activity that has potential to alter the contours of the groundwater table, even if it's just a little bit, and just in general, just the sequencing in doing that. So that is my concern. I still think that there's a potential to shift the driveway to the south. It's not really my concern about how much it intrudes into the first lot, because that's not really within the realm of wetland impact analysis. I think I think there is the room there. They've already gone so far as to parcel a small part off with an easement. I think they could probably move it and keep most of that easement as it is, and not necessarily go any farther into the interior of the lot. So anyway, so I welcome that that the commission continues down that path of inquiry. As far as my second point, I think they answered my question. If they do remove the ledge, how is it going to be done? Chipping, that's fine. Number 3, I'm not quite sure if I did not hear Mr. Delach totally, or whether he glossed over or whatever, but what My concern is that there's room for improvement, and that there's room to add buffer enhancements between the driveway and the wetland in that area. And from what I heard from Mr. DeLatch is that they were more than willing to remove invasive species, but I didn't hear the other half of the equation, which is what they were going to plant back in there, and that's what's important. I also there's opportunity to increase the biological diversity in that area, and there's also opportunity to add screening for the neighbors, which isn't necessarily a wetlands concern, but if you can do it in a way that enhances the biological diversity, you've basically achieved two goals at the same time. So I think that the applicant can come back and revisit that. As far as the wetland restoration plans, I strongly believe, at least in my practice, where I do work with a landscape architect, some of you in the commission might be familiar with my work, where we do wetland restoration plans, we never propose a wetland restoration plan unless there's enough detail in order to hand it off to a landscape contractor. And that's important for two reasons. One thing is that the contractor has to bid on it from a practical point of view, but more importantly, they need to know where the plants are going to go and how's that going to affect their acquisition of plants. And generally, you don't necessarily want to always have to rely on getting another expert out in the field to lay out plant design. I mean, often we do that, but you don't want to have to necessarily depend upon that. So I think this plan, although it's well intentioned for the wetland restoration, it's too conceptual at this point. I don't think it's at a point where you can just condition the permit to finish up the plan. I think the burden should be on the applicant to finish the plan before they continue on, with the review of this application. I think the planting details are important. As far as shrubs, that's just a discretionary comment. They can answer that for themselves. Mr. DeLatch kind of punted that question, said, I don't know, I'll ask Mr. Kenny. That's fair. But that has not been answered. As far as the tall stumps, I thought they had a pretty good answer. Some of those trees will have to be removed because you have to remove all the fill package, but there might be some trees that might not need totally be removed, and if so, then just cut them off and keep them as snags for wildlife. As far as the demarcation feature, I agree that's something that can be conditioned on any permit if such a permit is approved. As far as the safeguards, organic deer spray is just one possibility. You could also use physical barriers, deer guards, whatever you need. The point is that someone has to pay attention to that and condition and put that into the plan before it gets approval. It can be conditioned as a condition of the permit that I agree with. So anyway, to recap, I think the major issue is the road. That's a design issue. It's not a permit condition issue. I think it's something that warrants more discussion and maybe a little bit more work for the applicant. I was not privy to the earlier iterations of this site plan, so I do get that there's been some improvement since the previous site plan, and I think that's obviously a positive thing, and I'll grant Mr. DeAndrea that. However, I'm also looking at it very objectively because I did not know that, and just looking at this objectively, it just kind of screams out that you should explore moving the road just a little bit further to avoid that. With that, that's pretty much all I have to say. Take any questions, or you can just move on. Thank you.
And just for the record, questions will come from commissioners, not from the applicant.
Okay.
Would you like me to start the response?
Well, again, I want just commissioners, no questions for
Is there any other public comment?
and then, yeah, so you guys, this is your last chance once you're done speaking. That's it. Okay. All right. Sure. Well, actually, Bill Kenny's on. Is there anything that he needed to comment on?
Well, I would rather comment before Bill closes. How's that?
Alexis?
That's fine.
Sure.
I mean, from it appears that the public hearing comment period has closed. with no further comments, I just want to confirm that there's no further comments from any members of the public. And if you do want to make a comment, you can raise your hand. And then if not, that portion of the public hearing would close, and then you would move to the applicant's rebuttal, and hopefully they respond to all the comments brought up during the public hearing comment. Okay, but it sounds like you are commencing the rebuttal period.
Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Well, not closed, the
Public comment.
public comment portion of the public hearing. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. D'Andrea.
Okay, I'll share my screen again to help discuss these items. Share and okay. We're engineers. I'd be hard pressed to say, all right, there's no way we can move this driveway at all. So Brian, our engineer as well, we were looking at our site plan, and I'll take you down in this area here where the infiltrators are. And right now we're at 28 feet. We can push that to 35 feet. So at this location, that would be flag number 3. We can condition this to be 35 feet from that point to the edge of the northerly edge of the driveway. As you come up to flag number 5, we are presently at 45 feet. We could certainly squeeze another 5 feet and get you a full 50 feet opposite that flag. At flag number 7, which is the other, let's call it the pinch point, we are at 25 feet. That's getting a little tight, but we can make that 30. But something else we can do to minimize the rock that we may have to remove, and agreed, we're going to remove some. That length of the rock may be 20 or 30 feet. The depth we're saying to you right now maybe is a couple of feet to accommodate the driveway. But we can also raise the driveway in this location where contour 114 is, and we'll make that actually an intermediate high point and push that to 116.5, so we can push water back to the east towards this catch basin here, into the west back down the driveway. And I think that is a great compromise, and it minimizes the disturbance within the upland review area. Also, one more, just to make it clear on the record, this is not a roadway. I know sometimes it's just a slip of the tongue. This is just a 12-foot wide driveway. So again, going back and lifting the grade at this location for the driveway, it will probably make this wall that much higher. But if that's a fair compromise to you, then as an engineer, we can accommodate it. Talking about the alternatives, we certainly did. Obviously, we didn't file the one alternative, which is to say, hey, we don't own lot number 15, so we have no choice but to throw this driveway up this right of way, and hope you understand that we have no other way to access the property. That was an alternative we explored early on, and because the applicant owns both lots, we didn't even bother any sort of a design. However, on the record is our earlier design, which was quite a bit closer, both with the driveway, the level spreader, the house, and the infiltration system to the wetlands. So we have provided alternatives, and we have now worked to give you the best alternative, which is what I've just described now. And I think Bill Kenny will be able to attest to the fact that I don't see how this would be any degradation to the wetland that would be as far away now as 35 feet at the closest and 50 feet at the worst.
Okay. Alexis, how would we represent that at this point, those changes that Mr. D'Andrea suggested? I mean, because they can't submit any new drawings.
If I may, you could condition it that the final design shall be, as I stated, 35 feet from flag 3, 50 feet from flag 5, and 30 feet from flag 7.
And elevation 114 comes up to 116.5.
Exactly.
The wall to the north goes from being between 1.5 to 3 feet tall to 2.5 to 4.5 feet tall.
And we will try to minimize that, of course.
Right. Does that change any? Does it change the number of trees that stay versus get removed?
We may be able to save another tree or two.
But are we removing any additional trees?
No, no, I don't see where that would impact additional tree removal.
And just as far as prudent alternatives, thank you for reminding us of the earlier plan, and then mentioning, you know, how going through the dirt road, not dirt road, paper road wouldn't work. I mean, are there any other feasible alternatives? I mean, other than not building on the property, which I would have a hard time arguing, from my perspective at least.
And again, you know, we were also talking about the septic system again, but Brian, who's our engineer sitting to my left here, he's the engineer on it. He did the soil testing. He's really trying to say, no, this is the best location. So that prevents us from really shifting this too much. We have to worry about tank locations in that spread of the system you see, primary and reserve.
Mhm. Okay. Commissioners, awfully quiet. You let me do all the talking here. I'm bound to say something stupid. Can we address, no, we're not going to address, oh, thank you, Ms. Knight. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time for the comments. I thought they were very helpful and certainly in line with the discussions that we've had in working on this application, and other ones. I think that you know, I understand that one of the alternatives that just wasn't put down was to use the paper road. And so this is quite a generous alternative to the extent that, you know, this is a fortunate situation where the applicant owns the property and is able to create an easement, which previously didn't exist, to move the driveway. And I think that, you know, that I've been quite satisfied with the amendments and the way that we've been working with the applicant to amend the landscaping plan and to put in more trees to counterbalance the trees that are taken out. I do think that there might be a point in maybe demarcating or putting some conditions just to look at where the spread of trees or the landscaping would be, because the landscaper will need to know what they're doing. So that's.
Can we include as a condition, you think, Catherine, to have a, you know, certified landscaper, arborist, whatever on site to determine where trees, shrubs, etc. should go? If it's too conceptual in planner currently?
Yeah, Alexis would be able to put that in a condition.
Yeah, that would be fine to require I'd say a landscape architect. For location.
Okay. Okay.
I might just add a few things real quick.
Sure, hit it.
Yeah, sorry I wasn't here earlier. Had a conflict at another hearing. But I want to say a few things. One, with regard to the tree planting and deer issues, that our package has two drawings. One is the plan view with a plant list, cross-section plan view, plant list, and the second sheet has quite detailed specifications for the plants that are proposed, as well as how they get installed, and also a 3-year monitoring program for invasive vegetation. And we also have tree planting details in there. One reason that we spec a high density of trees and not shrubs often is exactly because of the deer. And that we find the deer, a combination of deer and invasive vegetation. So we try to plant a lot of trees to get shade to help control the invasive, because many of the invasives thrive in that full sun. So we want to try to get as much shade as we can to control those plants. And then in our tree planting details, we have protection shown on that from the deer. We show tree guard for the trunk, so that if they want to, often they'll want to rub antlers on the trees. So we do show that on our drawing, that the plants will be protected with from that activity. And yes, and we don't often specify the exact type and location of each tree. We give quantities, sizes, and the different species, and then we propose to be on site and adjust the locations and the mix of plants on site, so we could deal with existing conditions, other trees and other conditions. So we do that to allow for some flexibility, and with the knowledge that we would be on site during the planting and locate all those plants. And I want to also say that I think that it was very fortunate, as the Commissioner had mentioned, that the applicant owns that adjacent lot and allows for that easement for that driveway, because if not for that, the driveway would be going right through the wetland, as has been already discussed. And I think it's been great working with the commission to, we've expanded the buffers, pulled the house back, pulled the driveway back, and planted more trees. And so I do think it's been a good improvement, and it is my professional opinion as a wetland scientist, soil scientist, that the project will not adversely affect the wetlands with the work that's proposed. And that I believe this is the most feasible and prudent alternative. And so pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Kenny. So Alexis, now would I close the public hearing, you think? Everybody's kind of maybe sleepy
Yes.
or sneezy. Okay, well, let's, does that require a motion? I never remember.
Yes, please.
All right, so moved. Have a second.
Second.
Catherine, any discussion from anyone? Okay, all in favor for closing the public hearing? All right, unanimous. Fantastic. Okay, so we need to revisit our schedule. Why don't we just continue on with discussion and or decision 2 for S24-641 Forest Singing Woods Road. So this is just for the commissioners. I don't think we can make any sort of decision tonight. Alexis, do you have time? I mean, we have the clock. We have enough time on the clock to have a memorandum drafted for next meeting.
Oh yeah, you have more time than your next meeting is your first opportunity to be prepared for a decision. You have additional time beyond that next meeting if necessary.
If necessary. Okay.
Yeah.
There was a lot that needs to go into the conditions. How are you feeling about that?
Great.
Awesome.
No. I think I have noted all of your comments and the other commissioners' comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Take a stab at it.
Awesome. And we can always, as you know, tweak
Yes.
when the time comes.
Right.
Okay, commissioners, if you don't have any other discussion on that particular property, we're going to move on with our regularly scheduled programming, which was show cause hearing for V24-1065. All good? All right, we're doing it. So the Andersons are back on.
All right.
All right.
So yeah, please go ahead and keep going on the historic or the history of the property.
Yes, storied history. So I'll kind of reframe this in the context of Alexis had shared a lot of information from her findings. I would like to add a lot of context and address some of what she brought up as well. There, as she mentioned, there was a lot of work that we did outside of the wetlands on our property. And what I would like to do is share what it used to look like before we did that work, and effectively respond to the contention of removal of vegetation and terracing and the other descriptions in the letter. As I'd started to mention, or at least began, when we purchased the property, we had a backyard which contained multiple tiers of walls, a combination of dry walls and poorly, I'll say poorly, but mortared walls, which effectively acted as retaining walls between which were planter beds. And I'll share if you don't mind, I will screen share again, and I will share a version of what the backyard used to look like. And forgive me if this is a little duplicative. I want to make sure that the right context is added here. So this is a view from the ground, and apologies, I know I shared this already, of what the yard looked like before we did the work effectively. So we had a lower wall here, on top of which we, in the new work, built a similar wall using the same stones, and all the stones were like native to the property. We didn't actually bring any of these stones in, but we built we had a dry wall built on top of this, which effectively created a new version of this planter bed. And then these azaleas were relocated to the front yard, and we planted hydrangeas and catmint and other types of plants back there. This was, it's a planter bed. It's a combination of aesthetic and bees love it, and et cetera. Up top, there was a additional wall which effectively held up the upper area, which was pavers on one side, dry pavers, unmortared pavers on one side, and then a patio on the other side, which was also pavers. And I think there was mortar in there, maybe it was sand, I'm not sure.
It was mortar and sand. It was a mixture of everything.
Yes, and so what we did in that case was replace this with a proper retaining wall, according to engineered. It was an engineered retaining wall, was drilled into the bedrock, and then we replaced the existing patio with. We squared it off. It was rounded and it was separating from the house because of the oak tree, and we squared that off. But
it didn't go any further out than what was actually existing.
Right. Yes. So effectively, the locations were the same of the walls and the patio. We put turf instead of pavers up top for usability for our kids. We made sure that it was well drained, and that was effectively the work in the upper area. And I do specifically want to address the removal of vegetation, and I'll show a different picture of the backyard, which is, and forgive the blurriness, this is actually from the brochure, which I have next to me. Alexis, I know we talked through it, but this is what the yard looked like when we purchased the property in the back. And so you can see from a vegetation standpoint, and I'll focus on the upper area, so the things behind this lower wall. You can see the azaleas out front, the extremely large azaleas out front. The one thing that was mentioned was this oak tree, and the oak tree, which we did in fact remove. That is really the only vegetation that was removed from this area. And I can show you pictorially why we removed it, if you'll bear with me a second. Actually, sorry, I think I need to share my screen instead of, I'll just share my screen. So this occurred in our backyard. You could see the original patio here, and this significant branch fell from the oak tree.
The roots were also, it was about 6 feet from our foundation wall, and the roots were actually going into our foundation. And we actually had a table right where that branch fell, where we sit and have dinner. So
the grill still bears the dent in the hood. And then we actually removed it on a different day, which this happened in our front yard. So our oak tree fell into another oak tree, which fell into our neighbor's house. And you can see this one behind it, which is the one removed. When we had this cleaned up, we also had that other oak tree removed on that same day, which frankly, for the safety of our kids and everything, was just the right approach. And for the long.
But that's the only tree in our backyard we have ever removed.
Yes, others have fallen, but so in the upper area where we did the most significant amount of work, and where we replaced our patio and our terrace with newer versions of that and put the retaining walls in. We replanted planter beds. Like I want to emphasize that while we didn't know that we needed a wetland permit, otherwise we would have applied for one at the time, like we retained much of the original like design and effectively replaced I guess a similar quantity of vegetation with the exception of that oak tree. And so that's what I want to highlight about the upper area, which was the significant amount of work that we had contract work done in. The lower area, which is the area that yes, probably the more pressing issue, which is where the wetland boundary actually is. There, again, the letter cites the removal of vegetation and shade trees, understory trees, and ground vegetation. And what's in the letter but was not vocalized here was the bamboo as well. We didn't remove any trees or understory trees or anything. What we did remove though was and what was highlighted in the aerial photograph, that big green spot where our gravel now is and what used to be green, that was all bamboo. And it was nice and contained when we purchased the property.
Well, it looked nicely contained when we purchased the property.
Yes.
What we didn't know is that it the roots and everything was invading our neighbor's property, invading into our pond, invading into every single aspect of that entire lower property. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. So I won't go back to the original photo, but well, actually I will, because I do want to highlight what actually was there. So this is, again, a picture of the backyard. What you'll see is that in this lower area, which is in the wetland, there was grass down here, which must have been planted by the previous owners and looks a lot nicer in this picture than, everything in this picture looks a lot cleaner than what it turned into. And the bamboo patch, and this is really where the gravel is today. And what I want to emphasize is I did roll out turf down there. I personally did that, and it's because the bamboo here had spread to the extent that I was struggling to combat it myself. I cut it all down. It kept sprouting back up, and I was searching for a way to, without using chemicals, actually stop it from regrowing. The other species that's not mentioned in here, Alexis, maybe you can help me with the name, because I think you identified it when I showed it to you. If you see on the bottom right-hand corner of this picture, I think this is what it was, but there's these little sprouts that I think the previous neighbor planted as well, or the previous owner had planted as well. I forget what the species is named, but it has a similar root structure as bamboo, and it took over the entire backyard. This little island that it's sitting on, it crossed the water and was taking over this lower area as well. So that species was spreading all throughout this lower area. Frankly, I just could not pull it up. It had overlapping roots like rhizomes, which I didn't see it was invading. It was like nested within the azaleas. It was all the way across
it was basically killing every single thing remotely in our backyard. And also, just so you can see the tree in the right corner is still there, and that is all wood chipped area, as well as where the azaleas are. So all that we didn't touch. We just kind of just put down new wood chips. But again, as Mike said, the bamboo and this other invasive species, we tried putting, like, the only thing that we found that would stop it from growing, instead of taking, basically, when we talked to people about getting rid of it, they basically said that we had to dig up our entire backyard to get rid of it. So that the only thing to do is basically cut the sun. Sorry. Okay.
So effectively, yes, we did put down turf there, which was frankly my response that I thought would be appropriate. It effectively stopped it from continuing to spread. Although, as we do have this species on where it's located in this picture, as well as on the other side of the water, the bamboo is still outside of the gravel area, just kind of lingering. Yeah, it's little sprouts. It sprouts up again every year. So I'm sort of like hat in hand on the turf comment because yes, I did put that down because I wanted to stop this. And yes, I knew that it was in the wetland, but I did it specifically to kind of protect what was there. You know, our kids are out there all the time looking at frogs and stuff, and we wanted a way for them to be able to interact with this in a way that was
I mean,
that was safe.
when the
and
bamboo would fall, there were basically spikes all over our entire property. Like
so
it would, yeah.
So, any case, that's what I wanted to present here today was just a little bit of cause for why we did that, and the upper area, and in summary, was a recreation to make a safe living area, and the lower area was more or less to prevent the spread of these species, which I wish we had done earlier, but it is naive homeowners. I thought the bamboo looked cool. I had no idea it spread the way it did. And we found out years later, and when it was all the way across this picture and
going into our neighbors' properties and
yes,
going across the pond. We saw sprouts like almost coming into the pond. It's brutal.
That's really I think all I wanted to share. And so the clearing of vegetation was frankly limited to that, and moving the oak tree and trying to get rid of this species. We did cover up, or well, it wasn't the grass wasn't there anymore when we put the turf down, but we wanted
to put the turf on top of the grass because it was
dirt at the time, but yeah. Okay. In any case, thank you for hearing that. Any questions that we can answer?
Commissioners? And by the way, go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, thank you so much for giving the context. Hi. Appreciate, especially when you see the challenges that you had with the invasives, the bamboo removal and the other ones. I think that probably what we're going to be looking at is just, the protections of the wetlands and kind of remediating that and making sure that those are protected. And there's also the upland review area that they look at. I think just in looking at the walls, it would be helpful if we could see the picture of what the walls are now.
Sure.
And the terracing.
Let me see. Hold on, I have a.
Can you see that?
Oh, I haven't shared yet. Let me. Sorry, this picture's a little bit sideways, but I need to hold on. Alexis might have a better picture, but this is
a good one.
Yeah. So if you tilt your head slightly to the left, you could see this is the lower stack wall. It is taller than the other one was because this was a pretty significantly sloped planter bed, which frankly, from just a water runoff standpoint, is really conducive to, holding everything in. And then the upper retaining wall is a properly engineered wall that starts in the same location. What we did was we straightened it out. It was kind of rounded and joined in with the tree.
Well, there's actually 3 old ones. That actually falls along the straight one, and then above it was the curved one. This was the falling apart mortar wall that we reconstructed because our kids started climbing on it and
well, yeah,
taking it apart.
And vines and such. So the height of the top wall is where is effectively the same as the height of the original top wall. And the base of the bottom wall, which unfortunately is cut off in this picture, I'm sorry. The base of the bottom wall is effectively where the other base was. The difference is that we created like a flatter area in the middle instead of just having a very sloped planter bed.
Okay.
Commissioner, is this clarifying? Okay, please.
Just a question. So the lower wall, what's the height of that? And is that just dry packed or how is that constructed?
It's
just
dry packed. It is about 4 feet, perhaps, probably 4 feet.
I would say lower than that.
tall enough that our kids jump off it all the time, and not so much
Safely.
that we worry about them getting hurt.
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't, it's probably, the original one was probably 2 feet. This might be three and a half. Or so.
Then the top one, how does the drainage work on the top retaining wall?
So we have, I mean, there are these, I forget what they're called, these weep
poles,
or
yeah.
something in the bottom. The drainage from the house comes down through this. I don't know if you can see my pointer. Perhaps not, but you can see a downspout
Yeah.
in the corner of this area that goes down to a drainage pipe, which we had them install so that the drainage from the house is dumped in, and it basically carries it across this upper area and spouts out just on the other side of the step. So to the right of this picture, it just it spouts out there.
We had one originally in the old retaining wall, and it was we just moved it over about 10 feet from where it was, but we have the same amount of drainage pipes from the house that was originally there.
Yes. And then on the left, things from the patio, they did a great job of sloping it, so it just kind of goes down the stairs to the left. So pretty even distribution of water getting down. And we never get any standing water or anything up there. It's actually super effective if anyone's considering turf.
What's underneath the artificial turf?
I don't remember what the underlayment is, but it's effectively the same
It's dirt. It's basic. What they did was compacted the dirt, and then they just put a small, maybe small 1-inch layer of kind of like
I don't know what the material is, but finer grain.
There, yeah. So we can actually, the whole beauty of this was that we could just roll it up and plant grass if we wanted to there.
No, we could put pavers down.
Yeah,
But
or
yes,
grass. Or
one of the two.
So actually, I don't think it changed much from what was actually originally there when we bought the house with the paver stones. It's kind of like a leveling agent. It's very similar to what we had underneath the paver stones originally in the house when we bought it.
Okay. Catherine, do you have more, or you just didn't take your hand back?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I don't know, Steve, I'll let you go back, but I have a few thoughts, but I don't know if now's the time. I think, a concern that we would have is just with the artificial turf, like just the degradation of runoff and the releasing of chemicals and everything like that, being over the wetlands and then going into the wetlands and water course is not ideal. Also, from a heat retention, it tends to not be as cooling as a natural surface area, retains heat. So there's a lot of flags that go up for me just in having having a plastic surface in the upland review area and over a wetland.
That makes sense for you guys?
Us? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean, I understand that.
Okay.
I guess.
Hopefully no different than a house, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, I guess
I certainly want to distinguish between this area and the lower area, because certainly I'm very open to how we can effectively do better. We're here to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, with the lower, I mean, for us, I guess you have an idea how we can manage the bamboo without, they said digging 10 feet below. I mean, again, we're really into our wetlands. We're really obsessed with our pond, and our backyard is like why we bought this, because we absolutely adore it. So the idea that this bamboo destroying everything was just really heartbreaking for us, and we can't manage. I mean, they were like, oh, we'll just dump chemicals, which was like the last thing we would ever do to this area, because I mean, the frog life alone would cause all my boys to like cry, like no one can hurt the frogs. So I guess we are here to help work through this. and if we remove the turf on the lower end, I just would be like, what do we do with the bamboo?
Right. Okay. All right. So, oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you need to understand is that with the forever chemicals and the PDS and the breaking down the microplastics that degrade over time with AstroTurf, with the plastic false surface, that's also really not helpful to frogs and wildlife and sustaining life, because this goes right into Farm Creek, which is the nursery of life, basically, of all the issues that we have with microplastics. The turf is really a key source. And so, yes, you have a house that's there, but to the extent that we can use landscaping to help filter some of and dampen the human impact of us being able to live in such close proximity and enjoy the natural environment of a wetland and watercourse, we have to do our part to work with kind of planetary systems. So I guess that's sort of like my appealer.
Well, let me.
Well,
let me
I'll say like
go
the other
through-
reason.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
one of the major reasons we did turf, especially in the upper areas, we can't actually get a lawnmower back there. Like like if you look at our property, we have existing property about like the fence is like 2.5 feet from the corner of the house on the one side with a large oak tree there. Like we just can't get a lawnmower back there. So like functionally, I understand it's there's a lot of practicality in play here.
Okay, so I'm gonna lay it on you guys as simple as I can from a 10,000-foot viewpoint. What was there before wasn't perfect. And I think can all agree that had you known that there were regulations that applied to what you intended to do, that you would have certainly come to us, got an application, had it all approved, and would follow through on what was agreed upon as a prudent approach. And this, by the way, is not the first time someone's come to us and said, "Oh, we didn't know, we had no poor intentions." We totally believe that. But the thing is, we look at it as just upholding our job here. I mean, we're just residents in Norwalk, just like the rest of you, or that you guys are. Our job is just to uphold the state statute with regard to inland wetlands and water courses. And so when there is activity both in the wetland itself and within the upland review area, which is not necessarily a buffer, but it is 100 feet back from where the wetlands are or where we think they are, that upland review area is also under our purview in order to maintain the health and the viability and functions, et cetera, of the watercourses and wetlands. So so the next steps moving forward. So we did a show cause hearing. You guys showed and explained the causes. So check. The next step I would suggest to have done is to maybe reach out to well, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody else, but maybe some sort of landscape architect slash engineer slash soil scientist. That could be one person or multiple people to try to get a good idea of maybe what was, which is hard to do now because it's changed. In our eyes, it may not seem like a lot to you guys, but I don't want to speak for everyone else, but it's changed a whole lot in my opinion. And I think others would probably agree with me with regard to, what we're here to talk about. And so basically it would be a matter of saying, okay, what was there? What is there now? And what would be a prudent approach to come up with some sort of happy balance between, protecting the natural resources that we're here to protect, but also allow you guys to use your property as you want within, reason. Does that make sense? So unfortunately, we're just at the very beginning. We don't deal in just pictures and arm waving and such. We deal in engineering and reports from soil scientists and things like that. And so that's where I point you toward. Catherine, your hand's still up, and Alexis maybe is dying to say something. You want to jump in and save me here? It's 8:22, so I just get fuzzier as the night goes on. So.
No, I was just going to say that.
You gotta stop smoking those cigarettes, Alexis, really.
What's that?
I say you gotta quit smoking those stogies.
I think I'm getting a cold. So I'd say that before that was very good advice that you gave the respondent. I think the step before that is kind of affirmation that it sounds like affirmation regarding the order.
So we will uphold. Well, we've got a choice to what? Uphold,
withdraw, or uphold and modify.
Uphold
and so what it right now directs the respondents to do is to apply for a corrective action wetland permit, which it entails gathering a lot of information, and that's kind of what the chair of the commission was talking about, recommending that you might want to pull in a landscape architect or a similar professional to help you put together an application. So right now the order says to submit that application by Tuesday, September 24th, which is, just over 4 weeks. So not a huge amount of time. And then it says, okay, once you successfully get a wetland permit, implement it. So I guess maybe start with the commission taking your action, and then as far as like if the commission does uphold it and require you to get a kind of an after the fact wetland permit, I'd encourage you to come back into the office. We can pull past corrective action applications, as Steve mentioned, or as the chairman mentioned. There's in the past there unfortunately are a lot of wetland violations, and most of them are like you, where you had no idea that you had a wetland violation, and now you're tasked with getting this application together. And I think the commission is extremely accommodating and understanding of that. But I can't make any recommendations about who you should turn to help you put the application together, but I can certainly pull other applications that have been successful in the past so that you can look at them and call people.
All right. Thank you for that.
I'm
oh, go ahead. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm unclear on the nature of the, you mentioned bringing in a third party, some combination of engineer, site planner, et cetera. Like, is there a certification they need, or like it seems a little ambiguous to me, like what I'm asking them for. And like if I were on the phone with someone right now and asking them to come to my house, I'm not exactly sure what services I'm requiring.
Yeah.
Is that something, Alexis, you can help me with?
Yeah, I can help you,
Thank you.
narrow that down. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Well, then, should we be in touch with you via email or phone? Is that okay?
Yes, either.
Okay, great.
So,
Alexis, could I suggest maybe we push back the deadline for them to submit a corrective action permit application? Instead of Tuesday, September 24th, could we push it back to Tuesday, October 1st to give you a week to digest it before our October 8th meeting?
sure. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree.
Buffer there would be welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, and if no other commissioners have questions, I'm going to go ahead to move to uphold and amend cease and restore order V24-1065 with the amendment to, on page 2, direction 1, change Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 to Tuesday, October 1st, 2024.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's just a motion.
No. Just moving it back is helpful.
Procedural pause.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, Alexis is a great resource. She'll get you pointed in the right direction. And yeah, I mean, sorry, good luck. We'll see you again. I
October
don't know what to say.
something.
October 8th.
Well, yeah, ideally you'll see us on the October 8th meeting.
Or is it something that when we, okay, never mind. I'll let you guys
No,
go.
you-
It's really late. I understand.
No, that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we will, so part of this cease and
Like we have to do this again, even if, what if we submit our permit? Okay.
okay. Well, so
Go
part
for
of
all that.
the direction is this application must include a site plan that accurately illustrates existing pre-existing conditions, a plan to restore the impacted wetland area, blah, 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 all of the information, yada, yada. So we will ideally on October 8th be able to have your application, which has attached to it a whole bunch of information that we can all look at together
And
and
move forward and go.
discuss. And, yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one.
All right, back to our agenda, which I think has dwindled down to approval of minutes from July 23rd. I've talked enough. I'm not moving or seconding this.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Alexis, am I able to abstain or do you need me to vote on this?
No, you can abstain.
Okay, yeah, I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Well, there needs to be a second first. I think, right? Because
Well, I don't need to make Ed unmute himself. Okay, fine, I'll second it. No discussion, I assume. All in favor? All right.
with
3-0.
one abstention. All right.
I got a lot
Um,
of seconding in without Cheryl
I know.
Yeah, I know.
and Heather here.
You know, Heather reviews we're on the board of directors for our business, and she always reviews those too. She's good with the meeting minutes. Conservation initiatives. Would anyone like to discuss anything? We're to the point where our meetings end when it's dark outside and seeing.
Yeah.
Comments of staff?
No,
I hope you're not actually getting a cold.
I hope not to.
I don't have any comments, other commissioners? Okay, then I will move to adjourn. I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank
All right.
you, everyone, for joining and allowing us to do this and help people out. Or antagonizing them, depending on who it is.
Take care. Have a
Have a
good
good
night.
night, everybody.
Great. Good night.